Mad scientist goes berserk when we don't have squirrels. Look, it's really good.
My son, he's a mad scientist.
Oh boy. My
I
son,
heard
the
Spider-Man's gonna be there.
Oh no. Did you look right in the camera?
Snance.
That's the last thing you're supposed to do, Marshall.
That's what Joey, Jonathan, Jameson, Joey,
Benny?
Jimmy.
What's his name? Jimmy?
Benny?
Johnny?
Johnny, Jamie,
is his name? They're friends.
Jameson. Yeah, John. Man, this is a great way to start the comic book podcast.
I heard Spider-Man was... Is that the quote?
That's good. Okay, there's our cold open. Hey everybody, it's Marshall. You may know me from normal life, from being friends with me, from being someone that I know, or you are a listener of Cinema Lounge. You don't know me, or this is your first time seeing this, hearing me, seeing me, depending on how you're listening and where you're listening. I don't know. This is welcome to the show, Michael.
What an introduction to yourself. I second it for me. I'm Michael. Hi. You might know me or you might not, but you know me now, and I'm glad you do.
Yeah, Michael. Who are you and why are you here?
I'm Michael. I'm here because you and I are friends and we work together and we also like all the same things. Maybe not all the same things, but some of the same things. And one of those things is comic books, or comic books with an X, as you said before we started recording, which I love.
Comics books.
Comics books, I apologize, both with X's.
Yeah.
And we
R.I.P. Comixology.
Oh, man, that hurts.
Technically not dead, but dead in our hearts, and in its soul is gone.
Yeah. Dude, have I told you that I had that on my iPod Touch back in the day?
How does that work?
I just had the Comixology app on there.
You just were reading comics on a little iPod screen?
Yeah, because I was always behind the curve technology-wise.
Yeah, you were still building barns back then, yeah.
Back when I had the old LG Rumor cell phone with the slide-out keyboard.
Oh, yeah.
With my iPod Touch, while everybody else was having like iPhone 6s and stuff like that.
iPod phone 6s.
Yep.
So this is the comic book show where we talk about iPod phone 6s. Daredevil Born Again is coming out, or has come out. The first 2 episodes came out earlier this week, and we watched it.
Yeah.
That's not what this is about. What this is about is the comics that inspired the show so far, it seems. So far, it seems that the stuff that is inspiring the show is Charles Soule's run on the character and Chip Zdarsky's run on the character. Yep. Specifically, more so, it seems like Charles Soule and Ron Garney and the various Phelan artists. That seems to be, after rereading that, much more what we're going to be seeing, or at least much more what I have seen up to this point.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, it seems like they're taking a lot of the story elements from that. And starting with this new Daredevil Born Again show. Daredevil, you only get born twice.
Daredevil, you're born again twice.
Daredevil, too born too many times.
Too born, too furious.
He sure is.
He's an angry boy.
Can we, when we do Cinema Lounge, I know we try to start no spoilers. Can we just go full spoilers, like when we talk about the show?
So I mean, I think that going into this, if you haven't read Charles Soule and Chip Zdarsky's run on the character, if you haven't watched these first 2 episodes, at least, of Daredevil Born Again and all of the original series, we're gonna be, I think, immediately just kind of going into all of that.
Yeah.
So if you don't know those things, go do a lot of homework really fast, and then come back. Do it. Back?
They're back.
They're back. I checked. They told me they were back. Okay, so now we can talk about
back in the back issues.
Charles Soule's run on... Yeah, and by the way, this is called the back issues.
The back issues. Why do you call it that?
Because when you go to the comic book store, there is the boxes upon boxes upon boxes of what are called back issues, the old books Usually kind of old, decrepit individual issues, single issues, and stuff like that. But I think that, the idea is that we're talking about comics that aren't necessarily fresh and new and coming out, stuff that we think are classics, stuff that's really good, stuff that we want to go through, a graphic novel, an entire run in this case, that kind of thing. And then examining why we think it's great from the perspective of you, a person with like a degree in classics and stuff like that, and me, a person who's doing his best to be a professional cartoonist, illustrator, comics artist, and everything like that.
Totally.
So I have a lot of notes that I took on Charles Soule's run in particular, because that's the one that got me kind of back into reading comics when it was first coming out in 2016.
Yeah.
And it's very good.
It's very, very good.
How much of it did you get around to the whole thing, more or less, or just a couple different pieces?
It's a good question. I read the first 3 volumes of Soule's run on Daredevil.
That's
as well as
most of the best stuff.
It was really, I felt like I got a full scope of the story. And then same from just the first volume of Zdarsky's run. Same deal.
Zdarsky's run gets crazy as it goes on.
Yeah, it does.
The first volume is really only beginning to set up what is eventually going to happen. And there's a lot that goes on there. I think luckily for us, because I also didn't quite have time to read as much of that as I would have liked to, I don't think that Born Again is going to be doing much of that, at least not in the first season.
Yeah.
Because it seems like Soule's run and Zdarsky's run are very hand in hand in the way that they lead into each other. And I feel like that they're going to have to do a lot of setup in season 1 if they are planning to start doing Zdarsky things.
Totally. Yeah.
That's what I think about that, Michael.
Yeah. I feel like they're not going to, if I had to speculate, again, having just seen the 2-episode premiere for this first season of this show, I feel like they would they might take thematic things from Zdarsky's comics, but all the story, or seemingly, at least a lot of the story, is coming from Charles Soule. Now, I don't know about it looks like this first season is going to bring the Punisher back.
Yep, we know that for sure.
So I don't know if Soule had a ton with him in it.
I don't think he's even in. He did not in the main series, but there was a Punisher Daredevil miniseries that I have the trade paperback for.
Yes.
That I don't really remember what happened in it.
Yeah. I feel like they cross paths a lot, and it's like, that's my thing. Anytime they adapt one of these things is like, I don't need it to be exactly like the comics were. Like we talked about Secret Wars recently and how it's like kind of weird how Marvel seems to be leaning toward the 90s Secret Wars and the 2010s Secret Wars.
It was earlier than the 90s. I think it was like 1984 or something.
Was it 80s? Yeah, whatever it was. Yeah. Like they're kind of pulling elements from both, but the reality is they're making it, they're fitting it into their cinematic universe. You know what I mean? So it's probably not going to really resemble either one of them that much.
Well, that's what happened with Civil War.
Yeah,
because Civil War, the only similarity is these guys are fighting and there's some kind of superhero registration happening.
Yeah.
So there's inspirations happening in this new show from what I'm reading here. And I'm curious to see how much of it they are actually going to do directly.
Totally.
Because the original series, seasons 1 and 2, were pretty much completely original.
Yeah.
And then season 3 was adapting the actual story, Born Again.
Right. Yeah.
And it did, as best it could, pretty close to what it actually is in the comics. And I think that might be, if we're looking at the MCU at actually adapting things, I think that's maybe the closest that it's ever been.
Yeah.
Of actually just trying to do like, hey, this is the story we're doing, and we're actually going to do that story.
Totally.
I don't know if that's what's happening here. I think it could be, but I'm not sure. We're not there yet.
They had a lot more freedom back then because they were like only tangentially related to the overall like Marvel movie continuity, but now they're on Disney Plus and they're committed, Yeah, I don't know. So it's a little different.
Let's talk about the comic books.
Let's do. I love them.
So Charles Soule's run begins in a place that is kind of confusing because previously to that, his identity had become public knowledge. Everybody knew who he was.
Yep.
And this run begins and you don't really know why, but he has his secret identity back. And you don't figure that out until like 3 volumes, like quite a ways into the run actually, until you figure out why that is.
Yeah.
And it's not really important to anything that's happening here.
Yeah.
Let me just look at my notes here.
Yeah.
I think the thing that's interesting about Charles Soule in particular is that he was an attorney. He was a lawyer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Cool.
So when you're reading it, you really, he leans on the lawyer stuff a lot
Yeah.
in comparison to other runs that I've read. In particular, like Zdarsky doesn't do as much of that, but it's also like not where his story is focused. It's going a very different direction. Zdarsky seems to be doing a lot more religious, philosophizing compared to
Yep.
Soule, though.
Yeah.
So it's interesting seeing the way that, like, I don't know much about Zdarsky's background, if he like grew up Catholic at all. Like every time I see someone doing a Daredevil thing and they are pulling Bible stories or verses and stuff like that, I'm like, are they like, they have a theme and then they look up something to match that?
Yeah.
Or do they know these things first and then it goes the other way? Because it's so, like, there's some really interesting stuff in there
Yeah.
that I feel like usually in the show and in the comics does a good job of not like twisting what
Mm-hmm.
the word actually says.
Totally.
But
Yeah.
it's a weird balance.
Yeah, like we've talked about in the Civil War comics when Daredevil first gets captured by Iron Man, and he says something. What was the deal? He's like holding a
had
silver dollar in his
under
mouth.
tongue.
Yeah,
And then he kind of gave it to, they were like, he had this on him. It was the only thing he had. And
Yeah.
they give it to Tony. And
And
he's
he's
like,
like,
I guess that's 20, whatever
only
pieces of
29
silver
pieces
you have
left.
now,
Yeah.
Judas.
Yeah,
It's
which is
oh.
like good dig, I guess.
It is. It's also
But,
like
yeah.
Mark Millar grabbing like the most
Yeah.
low-hanging fruit, which is very him.
Yeah, it's that disingenuous thing you're talking about, where it's like
It doesn't. It feels like we're doing edginess for edginess' sake. Of
Yes,
like,
yeah.
well, he's Catholic, so we'll say this will be good.
yeah. Daredevil can only talk about law and
Daredevil
Catholicism.
do law. Daredevil do guilty. Daredevil
Yep.
be Catholic mean guilty, and law mean fight guilty, defend guilty, but Catholic mean feel guilty.
Yeah.
Good conflict in character.
Keep it going.
Character blind, doesn't see, no see, scale of justice, blind, justice is blind, Daredevil blind, Daredevil lawyer, lawyer do justice, justice is blind.
Jeepers.
Is this good?
There's Marshall Parrish can keep a bit going longer than anybody I've
That doesn't
met.
mean that it's good.
It's really good. Here's the thing. Amidst that bit, you hit on all the things that make Daredevil comics fun.
Yeah.
And that's the good part. The blind thing,
Yeah.
so fun.
And
the Justice
Soul
is
plays
blind,
a
yeah.
lot with the blindness.
Oh, he loves it. Absolutely.
Where
Well, I don't-
Zdarsky doesn't do it as much, but he does Soul does a lot of fun stuff with the fact that Daredevil's blind.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite example of that is at some point in Soul's run, he's working with Steve, who, for reasons I don't know, is Old Man Steve. The serum's gone or something like that. And he's defusing a bomb, and Steve is trying to walk him through it from outside. But again, Steve doesn't know that he's blind. So he's looking at this thing and trying to figure out, like, how do I turn this off, diffuse it.
Yeah.
How do I diffuse this? And Cap is like, okay, how much time does it say? And it just shows the the radar vision of a digital readout, and he's like,
Yeah.
crap.
Yeah.
And he just like jumps out the window because he doesn't know.
Yeah. And,
And
how
then it
could he
blows
know?
up.
There's also, in volume 3, there's that part where, like, he's facing off with Karnak in the Inhumans lair or
Yes.
whatever, and Karnak, through his, I forget how his ability is described. It's like he finds people's weaknesses.
or
Yeah.
something like that.
And through that, he discovers that Daredevil's blind.
Yeah, he'll figure it
So,
out any minute
yeah.
now. Oh, there it is. He got it.
Dude, which I thought was so cool. Like,
Yeah.
what a cool way of doing that in the medium of comics.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the heck out of that, because, like, just the description of, like, oh, there it is. He silenced his
He
heartbeat.
figured it out.
Yeah, he's, like, slowing
He
himself.
like stopped moving all out of nowhere. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So cool. I loved that.
I think the thing that I really like about Soul's run in particular is the lawyer stuff, because he's so good at it.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate that Zdarsky and Soul's runs suffer from something that Marvel does a lot, which is because they seem to put out books a lot more than monthly.
Yeah.
There's fill-in artists a lot more often than there is on DC books usually.
Mhm.
So like I'm reading that run, and when it's Ron Garney doing the art, which is incredible stuff,
Mhm.
it's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then it switches. And because the stuff that Ron Garney is doing is so specific and so unique, it's like intense whiplash.
Yeah.
Going from the crazy, cool, sketchy, like impressionistic stuff that Garney is doing, which is completely different from anything he's ever done before.
Mm-hmm.
And then to what feels like a much more like cartoon stylized almost feeling. And I can't remember the name of the artist. It's not bad stuff. It's good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But it just doesn't compare. The way that I thought that we could go about this, I have a bunch of notes here. And a lot of it I wrote on a single issue number 14.
Yes.
Which is the finale of the Dark Arts arc where Muse is defeated. And I think that's really interesting just because it's, to me, maybe the best single issue of the entire run. And also because Muse is going to be in the show.
Mm-hmm.
The Daredevil Born Again.
Yeah.
Disney Plus on Tuesdays. This issue I think is fantastic.
Yes.
It's really good. The writing is fantastic. The Ron Garney's art is fantastic. The pacing of it is great. Like the layouts are what like blew me away on this one. Who is Muse? Tell us about Muse.
Muse is a weird, freaky serial killer boy who's been, in this arc at the very least, he shows up, he makes this mural out of like over 100 people's blood, which is super disturbing.
Yeah.
And because of Daredevil's heightened senses, he can tell that on the spot. Like this is blood from a zillion different people. And
he's like, I don't know exactly, but there's at least 113.
Yes.
Which is terrifying.
It is terrifying. Terrifying to even be able to experience that or to be able like to notice that.
Yeah. Because he shows up for the first time because Blind Spot, Daredevil's kind of sidekick in this run, he is like, the way that Daredevil is there for Hell's Kitchen, he's there for Chinatown. Yeah. And people start leaving him these notes of like, hey, I need help with this thing. I need help with this thing. And he gets a personal invitation to come and see this thing. And he calls Matt and is like, I'm freaking out. You got to come and look at this because I don't know what the heck is going on here. It's real spooky. And you're not really sure what's going on there for a while. They start calling him Vincent Van Gogh, which is a very cool name.
It's pretty good, yeah.
New characters, villains especially, are really hard to make cool. But Muse is instantly terrifying, and that's down to Garney's design and Soule's writing of him as this psychopathic killer who believes that what he's doing is like artistic expression.
Yeah.
He's not doing this because it's evil or because he thinks it's like, I'm going to get him or anything like that. He thinks he's doing art. Because then when he comes back later in the run, he's not even doing like evil stuff anymore. He's like, oh, I'm inspired, and now I'm going to do stuff about superheroes.
Yeah.
And he's just like, more or less harmlessly doing stuff, murals of like Daredevil and everyone because superheroes have been outlawed.
Yeah.
So it's weird that he just has kind of like no morality.
Weird change of heart there.
Yeah, there's no good or evil inside of him.
Yeah.
It's just he's doing whatever he's doing because that's what he's doing.
Yeah.
Which is kind of more scary.
Totally. Yeah. And throughout the whole thing, you know, it's like there are portions where Daredevil is like searching for rationale and searching for motive and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And at one point he stops and just goes, but there is no rationale. I forget his exact words, but he's like, there is no rationale. He's an artist, you know, like that's the whole thing is he's not making a statement. He's just being creative. You know,
it wants it to be interpreted.
Yeah. It just so happens that he's dismembering people in order to do it. You know?
Well, because he goes to that second place where he shows up. The second place where the art shows, quote unquote art, shows up, and it's a bunch of like Inhumans in these positions, like very regular life positions, and it's seemingly a statement on like Inhumans are people too and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then he senses that there's someone around here, and he goes and he finds him, and he's just like waiting to see how his stuff is received.
Yeah, like he wants Daredevil to like his
it's
his
like, so what do you think? Do you like it?
Yeah, it's like, so weird.
That's so creepy.
And he asks him like 3 or 4 times, like he insists.
Yeah.
It's so strange.
Tell me.
Yeah. It makes for such a cool Daredevil specific villain too. Cause you know, I think when Daredevil first approaches the blood mural,
he doesn't know what it is.
He can't tell. Yeah.
It's just flat.
Yeah. He walks up to it and says like, I won't be able to tell what this is until I touch it, which is like insane that he like just to the implication that like, he has to, like Daredevil has to physically interact with the crime scene in order to even understand it.
Yeah.
I loved that as like a touch of of just what makes Daredevil unique.
Yeah, he's like, Sam, tell me what I've got here. Like, tell me what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
In a very casual way, because again, he doesn't know that he's blind either.
Yeah, even Sam doesn't know yet.
Like, how do you manage that? And
Yeah.
it's written so well to be able to not have that be weird or like not make any sense at any point. It's so impressive. Yeah, I don't know. Like, and there's that great moment at the end of, I don't know if it's the end of that issue, but it's in that issue where he's like, okay, he's taking his gloves off so he can touch it or something like that. And Sam is like, well, what do? You just said it's a crime scene. What are you doing? He said, it is a crime scene.
It's my
crime scene.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah.
So good.
It's
I love it.
Daredevil, Matt Murdock. He's very sassy.
Oh, he's a drama queen.
You read the books. I'm so used to seeing him on the show and thinking, they're adapting it and they always make changes to the characters and everything like that. But he is really, like, the show is such a good adaptation of him as a character because he is this, like, kind of dry wit, sassy dude in the way that Spider-Man is kind of, like, goofy and kind of jokey in that other kind of way. Yeah. Like, they're very similar characters, but on different kind of sides of that spectrum.
Totally. Yeah.
It's great.
That's why they work so well together in New York, which Spider-Man also had to laugh during the show. He like catches a random stray from Mayor Fisk. Yeah. So rude. He's like, what did I do?
I don't even know this guy. Like, he's never met him.
Yeah. Not yet anyways. Not that we know of.
It's so funny. Characters running around in spider costumes.
A gun-toting man with a skull on his chest. What about other gun-toting men? Willie Fisk.
What about them? That's a great moment from Zdarsky's run when he's kind of, and I'm getting ahead of myself now, but I don't want to forget. There's a moment in Zdarsky's run after he's accidentally killed this guy and he's just like plummeting and spiraling, and he has his interaction with the Punisher, and then the Defenders come and help him, and they're like, dude, like, you're running around going crazy, terrorizing your neighborhood. You're wearing a Punisher outfit, and he's like, huh? Because it's just a shirt. He doesn't know. Yeah. He doesn't know what's on the shirt.
Totally. You know what? For whatever reason, when reading that, I didn't even catch that he didn't notice what was on his shirt. But the symbolism of that is so good.
Well, they mentioned that he was dressed that way, and his reaction was like, how did you know I was with the Punisher? Because he has no idea that he's wearing a giant like advertisement that says I was just with the Punisher, basically.
Oh yeah. Which is like the subtext of that is, I didn't know I was turning into the Punisher. That's the whole idea behind them.
That's what Frank was saying and all of that too. So in issue 14, the final kind of confrontation with Muse, he finds, like, Sam has been captured. He goes and finds him, and this moment was really impressive to me. Just the way that Garney paces out the scene with these kind of very cinematic, it's like what John Cassaday would do. Yeah. He just passed recently, but he was incredible, and he was like the king of what was called widescreen comics, which was like a huge thing in like the early 2000s with stuff like, I mean, the stuff that he was doing, like Planetary and Astonishing X-Men. There's that super famous panel of when Kitty discovers Colossus is alive, and it's just the two of them looking at each other, and then she's just standing there, and the next panel is him like running through her to go and stop people. It's amazing stuff. Yeah. And this is kind of doing the same kind of thing where it slows down the pace. Yeah. Because it's not like a frenetic, what did I write here? The pages where he gouges blind spot's eyes out are incredible. A perfect example of how the formatting of the page creates the pace of the scene. A hard cut in like a movie, think about a jump cut, right? Yeah. And what does that look like? How do you do a jump cut or a jump scare in a written page medium? What do you do?
I mean, you would have to, it's got to be when you turn the page.
Turn the page. Yeah. So you have to think about the pacing of everything in order to get those moments exactly right. So what they've got here is you get all the way to the end of this and he figures out, I know what I'm going to do, this guy. And then you turn the page and it's like, boom, terrifying.
That's so
horrible. But even just the way that this is all shown here is you're seeing from above, thinking like cinematically, how do you, going into Cinema Lounge brain, how are we shooting this scene? So you go here and we're seeing from Blind Spot and Sam's, that's the same person, Muse and Blind Spot's perspective, looking down on Daredevil. And he's saying, you know, get away from him or I'll snap every bone in your body. And then you're seeing from his perspective, it's a shot reverse shot, more or less. And then right before the big thing happens, close up, bigger effect. And then you go right into that, and it's still kind of that thing, but now you're seeing Daredevil's perspective. It's not the close shop. This is his perspective.
Yeah.
And then immediately seeing the flip side of that. This is still him seeing. This is basically one panel.
Yeah.
More or less. Like you're seeing the two sides of one thing happening here, and then the zoom out. And like that's the under lighting there as well. It's so terrifying, and it doesn't split from that until he throws him over the edge.
Yeah.
And that whole time, the way that it's these widescreen panels, it's making you kind of slow down.
Yeah.
In the way that you're reading it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting like big thing, big thing, big thing. There's 3-4 moments on each page,
mm-hmm.
and the impact is bigger for that reason.
Totally.
So especially then the way that you position it, the big thing is this huge first thing that's happening here.
Mm-hmm.
You're either going to put that there or in the center of the page, somewhere really central that it blasts you.
Yeah.
It really makes your eyes pop.
Bad taste.
But it's very good. And it's just fantastic stuff. And then finally, with him catching him, and then you take away all of the background here
mm-hmm.
to get the full impact of that scene, of the actual acting of the characters.
Yeah.
A really good piece is not relying on the fact that you're taking time to look at it, really. Mm-hmm. Like all of this is arranged in such a way that it's drawing your eye from there to there to there. Like this is a circle. This is, the same thing. Like you're going in a Z. And then the same thing here is you see this action going on to there, there, and that way. Like the way that you arrange the page, and I'll try to figure out a way to animate what I'm doing with my finger here.
Yeah. Drawing some arrows.
I guess so.
We love a red arrow on YouTube,
Yeah. But the flow of the page is a really difficult thing to do, and you don't really think about it because it's like the edit of a movie or like pulling focus on a camera. That's a good analogy.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah. But if you're ever reading a book or reading a comic rather that doesn't have that flow, you notice it. It's imperceptible when it's there and it's good, but when it's lacking in that because it feels disjointed. It doesn't feel like, that's when you, the reader, are going, okay, which speech bubble am I going to next? Stuff like that. Like there's almost that learned skill of knowing how to flow through a comic book.
Yeah. But it's also not just about your attention and pace. It's showing you all the emotion of the scene as well.
Yeah.
Like we want to show that this is a huge moment at the Daredevil is freaking out. Bright yellow background. Yeah. Is there a bright yellow background in that room? No. There's not.
Yeah.
Very much so there's not. They're in a weird dark warehouse. Mm-hmm. But what you can see here is it's a shock. It's a huge out of nowhere surprise. Mm-hmm. And the color comes out of nowhere in the same way. The same thing over here. We've gone from that bright yellow into pitch black.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what's behind them. That's feasible.
Yeah.
But what you're seeing here is complete despair of I've failed this kid.
Yeah.
And it's horrifying what's happened to him. And you're getting now the below lighting from over here, making it very like scary. And then now from very top down, it's almost like a spotlight on this specific scene, highlighting this thing and nothing else that's happening in the scene.
Yeah.
And then you come out of that much more like impressionistic world back into what's actually happening.
Totally. Yeah.
The thing that immediately follows that is then we're changing the pace again. We're chasing Muse now.
Yeah.
Seeing him slowly appearing as he gets closer and focuses on him. The pitch black. You're not seeing anything else that's happening here. Yeah. It's just about these two characters. The same thing. And then, but it's getting faster. So you've got this long panel and then these ones as he's slowly, the panels themselves are getting smaller as he's narrowing down his radar vision to figure out exactly where he's looking.
Yeah.
And then it's back to wide. And then suddenly, boom, it's actually all right up close. I've not narrowed it down. It's right there. Two big panels and then smaller again, another bigger shot because it's another big moment, smaller panels, and then this bright red, there's like break. There's an actual break in the pacing and the page and something's happened. And that's when you turn to the splash. And it's just amazing. From slowly going to less and less background work and less detail, less and less in the scene until you finally get to that. Yeah. And it has more impact for that.
If you don't want to get your eyes poked out, don't be called Blind Spot as a superhero.
Yeah.
Like I get that you go invisible. I understand. Also,
because he's your blind spot.
If you're gonna be invisible, charge your batteries that make you invisible.
Man's batteries are running out all the time.
How
it's
did
like
that
Spider-Man
happen?
and his webbing fluid in the early 60s.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing, guys?
I think he only goes invisible successfully one time, and then he tries it a second time.
My batteries.
Yeah, it's like, okay,
Oh,
dude,
no.
you're invisible for 3 frames.
What is this suit running on?
Truly.
Triple A's?
Yeah, must be.
I don't know. Is it regular batteries? Is he using Duracells in that baby?
I have no idea.
The Mayor Fisk stuff also starts in Soul's Run. You didn't get to that part?
When does it start? It's like later on in the run,
yeah. So there's some stuff that happens after the Muse stuff, and then because Sam gets taken by his mom for some reason, you don't know why.
Right.
Turns out she's taken him to China to the Hand headquarters, and the beast, the demon that the Hand worships, has given him his eyes back. But it kind of made him a little bit evil because he was there for too long. So
Classic.
he kidnaps Matt and keeps him in a dungeon. And long story short, they escape and he's a good guy again, but their relationship is kind of damaged.
Yeah.
His mom is eaten by the demon. Unfortunate.
Oh, sorry, Mom.
Hate it when that happens.
Yeah.
She had it coming.
She should have seen that coming.
She should have. She's not blind. So he comes back from China, basically. And before that, they kept getting these snippets of like, Fisk is like, dang it, I'm frustrated about things and maybe there's something I should do about it.
Yeah.
And then he comes back and he's hearing, he's like, okay, I'm back and everything's great. And I just did this cool thing with the Supreme Court where superheroes can testify in a court of law without having to take off their mask and all this different stuff. And that was all really cool. And that introduced the character called Law, who's just like a superhero lawyer who just is like, he knows the law really well. And that's his superpower. And it's kind of awesome, actually.
Is it?
And he has this great speech about how the law doesn't have morality. It's like, it's really kind of cool.
All right, I got to get to this part. Yeah.
Charles Soule.
Yeah.
But he comes back and starts to hear like people talking. And Fisk has become elected mayor. This comic did come out in 2016.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure watching the show. I couldn't remember when this book came out, when the Mayor Fisk stuff started happening, how much of a real world analog that was meant to be.
Right. Yeah.
If that was something that was happening ahead of that election cycle, or if that was like a reaction to it. And I think because it was coming out in 2016, we can very easily say that this is a reaction to that.
Yeah.
The way that they talk about Fisk being this guy who shows up and just tells it how it is and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It feels a little more ham-fisted in the show.
Oh, totally.
It's a little too direct sometimes in the show of just like, you're just basically, it feels like you're pulling quotes from news articles about people talking about the president.
Yeah.
Which
big time. Yeah.
feels a little ham-fisted. I might agree with what you're saying if philosophically about this man.
Yeah.
But again, the classic James and Mason thing of it has to be good.
Sure.
You can't just do a thing. It also has to be good.
Yep. Make your point, but make it good quality.
Yes. This is something that I did
panel.
think was fun.
Yeah.
As I saw that cover and I thought, that's okay. And then I saw the name. This is an early Dan Mora.
Wow.
Dan Mora in 2016.
Very early. Wow.
It does not look like modern Dan Mora.
Not at all.
At all.
It doesn't, although it doesn't look like anybody's very specific language. I mean, I guess that just means he's still figuring out his style. You know?
Yeah.
That's cool.
For anybody who doesn't know, Dan Mora nowadays is like the guy.
Yeah.
He's like one of the top guys in the industry. Him and Jorge Jimenez are like incredible. And there's a few of these. Like he did this one too.
Yeah.
Which feels a bit more like him.
Much more, yeah.
But still, like, the coloring is very different from, like, I think Alejandro Sanchez does the coloring on a lot of his stuff now, and it's very different here than there. He's not using as much black in this, I think, as there's a lot more hatching and a lot more, like, leaving things open for the colorist.
Mm-hmm.
Where I feel like nowadays his stuff uses a lot more black.
Yeah, a lot more shadow.
This one, I didn't know that this cover was Dan Mora. I have this issue.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting.
I have a lot of these ones. I don't know where they are, but I have that issue too. So I have a Dan Mora Daredevil issue. I almost don't know how much we can talk about Zdarsky at this point because there's not much. It seems like that he's actually inspiring in the show as of yet. If they're going to bring in Detective Cole North, maybe that's a thing.
I think they are.
I think they are.
There's a plan. I don't know if it's in this season or the next, but
I feel like it has to be a second season thing. because there's so much stuff that requires so much. Like we just talked for almost an hour already about all of that stuff in Charles Soule's run in just one issue.
Totally.
And all of this stuff that leads up to this, like you have to do the Muse thing because that leads up to that, and this leads to this, and this leads to that, and that leads, and so on and so forth. And the MCU does a lot of skipping everything and trying too hard.
Yeah.
And I feel like that might be happening here.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
I hope not.
But I think it might be.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's okay. Like we were talking about with adaptations, like they kind of have to do what they have to do. And we can let that still be good if it is still good. You know what I mean? Like not making it something that it's not, but also not like keeping such high expectations that like they can never be met by something that's not just the original source. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's the weird problem of adaptation of like, do you change things because we've already seen this story, or do you do it as close to the story as possible because this is the story that we love,
right? And
we want to see this story done in a different medium. And I don't know. I think that both ways are right sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, gosh, there was just something that came out fairly recently. There was like a super. The Last of Us. The Last of Us was a pretty dang direct, straight up adaptation of the story of the video game.
Yeah.
There's a couple places where it deviated, but otherwise it was pretty much exactly the story with a lot of the same dialogue and everything like that.
Yeah.
Amazingly, a lot of the same like character choices, even though Pedro and Bella, I think, both said that they intentionally didn't play the game ahead of time.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the strength of the material and the writing, which is really fascinating to me.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. Like I know that it can work really well that way, and I think a lot of the problem I think is when it comes to the adaptation not being as good.
Yeah.
My immediate reaction is they should have just done the actual story,
right.
And I don't know that that's valid. It's an easy thing to back up into of like I know that this thing that I like is good. And the thing that they did wasn't very good.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't the thing that I like.
Dude, and I've been beating up on Disney, like, on both ends of that spectrum.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, they'll just make things, Disney makes random sequels and random just stuff that's, like, not really what anybody wants.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're making The Mandalorian and Grogu, our favorite new movie.
Right, and it's like we already saw the TV show of that.
Yeah.
You don't need
Which seemed to have an ending.
Yeah, I think it did. Yeah, that's just it. Yeah, so we don't need that. But then they're making like Lilo and Stitch in live action, and it looks just shot for shot like the old cartoon.
Yeah, which feels less, because that was already something that was like an on-screen medium. That kind of adaptation feels more stupid to me.
Exactly.
Taking something from a book or a comic book to a screen adaptation, whether that's animated or live action.
Yeah.
Feels more valid to me. But even then, like, there's this feeling where something needs to be in live action and that's the final form of something to make it like real.
Right.
But I don't know that it needs to be. You know, different mediums do different things better than other ones. You know, like we were talking about pacing in comic books and the way that panels and things and pulling, whatever. But I don't know. I'm really curious to see what they end up doing.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of like Daredevil going and crashing out super hard in the Zdarsky stuff.
Yeah.
And I feel like you can't really do that right now because where he's at is he's given it up.
Yeah.
And he sort of starts to do that in Zdarsky's run, but he very quickly goes back on it. So how do you, unless what they're doing is he's accidentally killed one or both of these police officers.
Dude, which it sure looks like it.
I mean, man, that neck seems to be real snapped.
Oh, that was a big old neck snap first. He has at least attempted to kill all the people that he's fought in this series so far, which is 3.
Yeah.
Which is nuts for him.
I don't know. Because the first series is so much about that decision of killing or not killing, especially season 3.
Yeah.
Where he decides at the end, I'm not going to kill Fisk. And they make a point of talking about that in episode 1 of Born Again.
Yep.
So I don't know. I'm
Yeah.
really interested to see where that goes and what happens with that. I really hope that they're not dead, but because that feels like a real betrayal of what we've just been doing. And if you were going to do that, then it should have been somebody like Bullseye, because you just did this thing where like you tried to kill someone, and then, yeah, but I didn't, but now I'm going to do it.
Yeah, I'm going to go back.
It's
and
like,
do that.
then what is the moral conviction here? Like, where are we? Because he's already in this place where he's walking by the church because he feels like he can't go in.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Which is such a cool, again, it's for his Catholic side. It's a great and I think really interesting thing to show. I'm really glad they showed that. They could have, a lesser show would have just ignored that. Yeah. Or would have not thought to do something like that, like in the script or in the screenplay, but they did, and that's cool,
Yeah.
And like, I think honestly, the reason I hope that he did end up killing these two dirty police officers. Murder? No, but I love a good story, and I think it makes for a really good, like the redemption, the same redemption story that he goes through in Zdarsky's run. Like he could have some form of that.
I feel like I agree, except that it just feels like we're going a little back and forth of like, we just did this and now we're not doing this and now we are doing this.
That's kind of his whole character though. I mean, that's his whole conflict with the Punisher in the second season of the original show.
Yeah, I don't know. That's
his whole conflict at the end of season 3 with Fisk, and kind of even throughout season 3 where he's like, I mean, he's abandoned his friends because he thinks that he's going to have to, like cross the line and become unthinkable. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like that's a little bit of his whole thing, which admittedly is not my favorite storyline ever in comic book story.
Like doing it over and over and over again.
Something's kind of obsessed.
Feels like we just did it.
Like, you ever watch the Arrow show? The Arrow show was obsessed with. I did too. They were obsessed with the like, will he kill or won't he kill?
Well, they did fail the city though, so he has to do something.
His favorite thing. His favorite thing to say.
They did fail that city.
Yeah, that's it. There's one thing I know. City? Or Starling City at one point.
That's what it is, I think.
Why did they start it that way? I don't know. How do we get to Arrow? That's crazy.
I try not to talk about Arrow if I don't have to. You want to hear my Born Again notes?
Yeah, let's hear them.
Controversial opening. Foggy Nelson. I've got 13% power on this MacBook. I don't know how. Now it's at 11. It just went down 2%.
That's crazy. I'll pick up where you leave off with my notes.
Foggy. Well, this is also where the audio is going. Foggy Nelson is supposedly dead. Do you think he's actually dead?
Yep.
Are you sure?
Yeah, that would suck if they brought him back to life.
Here's the thing. You may have seen this. The address of Nelson, Murdoch, and Page is 456. Daredevil 456 is an issue in which Foggy Nelson fakes his death.
Oh, big.
So that is either a cruel joke or true or an accident. If you rewatch episode 1 and you look at the scene where Karen and Matt talk the 1 year later after the sentencing, mm-hmm. If you watch that with the perspective of Foggy is alive and Karen knows it, it plays very differently.
Oh, interesting.
Like, why does she want to get out of there? Why does she not want to talk to Matt? Why did she move? All these different things. Like, because if they start talking about Foggy, if they start talking about these different things, he will know if she's lying.
Oh, interesting.
Immediately that she's lying.
Yeah.
She avoids all of these topics very carefully, if that's the perspective. I can see that being a thing. They've already confirmed that both of them are coming back in season 2. That could be a flashback.
Yeah.
That could be meaningless. We don't know. I hope that it's true, because killing him off for shock value like that feels so careless and stupid and pointless.
Yeah.
When they could do you just can do something else with it, Like, it just doesn't have impact. It doesn't have impact. Like, Foggy's dead. It's just disappointing that Foggy's dead. I'm not really feeling sad for Matt and everything, because I feel like a lot of people came into this show kind of expecting that to happen. I don't know. I think the only question I would have then is, what's Foggy's endgame? Like, why would he have done this? And then why would he have done this and then also keep doing it for a year? Do you think that Foggy Nelson is alive? Yes or no? Answer.
No, absolutely not. I really hope they don't do that, because I think that would be cheap, because I think that this like the first thing that Matt did after learning that his friend died, which that I had in my notes as well, like Matt listening to Foggy's fading heartbeat over the whole scene is brutal. So good. That's talk about impact. That right there.
That was good.
And the first thing he does when he no longer hears Foggy's heartbeat is he tries to kill the one who shot him.
Bullseye.
And then later on, a year later, he tries to kill 2 more guys. It's like the whole, like, he's got this like rage bottled up from Foggy's death. And he's ready to kill people because of it. I'm like, since I like where that will take the character, I really hope that they don't pull a big old switcheroo on us later on.
It just feels so out of nowhere. Why would Bullseye go after Foggy? Am I forgetting something from season 3?
Dude, that's what I want to know too. There's other unknowns.
Fisk says he's not involved.
Right.
And I trust him.
Yeah.
I don't have any reason not to think that.
I also trust him. But then there's a different part in...
He's very trustworthy. He tells it how it is. I like him.
I know. I'd vote for him. There's a different part, I think in episode 1 or maybe episode 2, where Fisk... Episode 2, my note... Sorry, everybody. My note was, who has Fisk been fisting? Because he has, like, bloody knuckles.
Yes, I noticed that. That. That's interesting.
So there's, like, unknowns like that. Why did Bullseye do all this? Like,
because he comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Seemingly intentionally to kill Foggy. Like he's trying to get Foggy, which makes me, it almost to me gives credence to the idea that Foggy is faking his death.
Yeah.
But then why and how? And then how is he controlling Bullseye, a complete psychopathic maniac?
Yeah. Who hates it? He broke Bullseye's spine. Bullseye should hate
Daredevil, or Fisk did.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Sorry. Yeah. Like, yeah.
So he does hate Fisk as well. So how he wouldn't theoretically work for him?
Yeah. But who are the doctors working on him at the end of season 3? Just such interesting stuff that I'm. Yeah, dude. In like 2 months when this show is done, one of us is gonna look like a goober talking about Foggy either being alive or being dead.
Should we bet on it? What happens if I'm right?
If you're right,
I'm gonna say Foggy faked his death. Daredevil 456.
If you're right, I will, I don't know.
Buy me the Charles Soule Daredevil Omnibus.
Golly Moses, that sounds so expensive. I can't do that.
It's only like $7,000.
I'm buying a house. I can't.
I think it's like $60. I don't know.
Cannot do it.
Okay.
But I'll do something goofy on camera. I'll do whatever you want.
Buy me
does
a cool Daredevil action figure.
How about maybe I'll do that, or maybe like. But the loser just does something silly at the other person's request on camera. Yeah. Something cancel worthy. Obviously.
Yeah.
That's
not as much fun as doing something violent or spending a lot of money.
Yeah, no, I know, but I just don't have money.
Neither do I, but I'm willing to commit.
Yeah, and that's why we're starting our Patreon. No, we're not starting our Patreon right now.
I have a coffee page.
Do you have a coffee page?
I do. I keep thinking I should look at that and do something with that.
Send Marshall a coffee so he can buy me a coffee.
I would.
I don't have one set up for me.
Used to be that when I took people to Meadowlark for the first time, I would always get their stuff, but now I can't afford to do that. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
The acrobatics are really cool when it's not janky.
Oh, yeah, and it's so much of it's janky. I don't want him to be CGI pretty much ever.
I like that he's doing acrobatics.
Yep.
I just think it needs a little more time in the oven.
It needs a little
time. And I think nobody would be talking about it in this way if it wasn't a little janky. If it was really well done, everyone would be saying, cool, I love that he's jumping around now. But it's a little goofy, so people don't like it.
It just doesn't feel like him. We've seen him for 3 seasons doing a certain kind of action, and now he's doing other kinds of actions.
Before.
Well, exactly, yeah. But it was never, I don't know.
Maybe it feels too floaty.
It feels very floaty. He feels weightless. Very weightless. Yeah. You know what? You remember how they used to, when they were first making the Spider-Man movie in the early 2000s, and people were like, "Oh, he just looks like a rubber man." This is what that feels like in 2025. You remember this?
No.
That's what some people at least.
I forgot in 2002 what people were saying.
Yeah.
I didn't remember.
You were busy being like 2
years old.
2 whole years old.
Yeah. He looks like a rubber man.
They thought he was a rubber man. They thought that
pictures of rubber man.
He's a hero, Rubber Man.
They also went to extreme lengths to do
I heard
practical
Rubber
camera
Man
moves.
was.
Snance.
Thanks.
They went to extreme lengths to make really realistic camera moves in that those movies as well. Like they developed a whole thing to be able to take a camera in between New York skyscrapers and do like a swooping dealio. I'll try to find video of that and put it in here.
Yeah. And it works for Spider-Man.
It does work for Spider-Man.
It shouldn't work for Daredevil because he's like, as far as body work, he's just a very strong, normal man. You know?
But not in the comics. In the comics, he does jump around. He can keep up with Spider-Man in swinging.
Can he?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
Spider-Man's way stronger.
Woo! Stronger, yes, but he can swing around. Spider-Man's probably slowing down for him.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like a good friend.
I just want it to look better. That's the big
I also
one.
want it to look better.
Also, there were no, speaking of a normal man, why did he not face any medical consequences of just getting pin-cushioned by like a dozen knives?
Costume protect.
Yeah, but it's knife stab for sure.
It was a lot of knives.
Lots of knives.
But I think it's just costume protect.
That's a good
Because in season 3, he didn't have costume. Bullseye have costume. Daredevil not have costume. Daredevil have black outfit.
Yeah.
Daredevil have t-shirt. Knife hurt. Daredevil have costume. Knife. Fine.
Keep it going. Keep the bid going.
It's over. Knife not hurt costume. Knife hurt shirt.
Part of Daredevil having his costume back is having his batons, which I do love, even though the swinging that he does with them is weird. They're great. They're great batons. When he boinks it off like one wall and the other wall, and then into Bullseye's dome piece.
His bullseye.
Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I enjoyed the heck out of that.
Cinematography, I think, is really good. I think people on Twitter are stupid. Everybody's saying, this doesn't look as good as the old show. This doesn't look good. The old show looks better. I think people just think that having a bright yellow filter over the top of everything and making it look really grungy means that it's cinematic and cool.
Yeah.
It's just a different look.
Right.
In comparison to other Disney shows especially, this show looks great.
It looks really, really good.
Like, it looks like it's shot on film. It's definitely not.
Yeah.
But they're doing some film emulation here.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the lighting is really good. But everything that people are pulling, are we overheating?
Oh no! Are we rolling? You might have seen some weird cuts just now, and the camera angle might have changed just a smidge. Our camera overheated, but we're back. Hi.
Everything's back. I don't know what we were talking about. Daredevil, good. I think, here's my next note. Killing Foggy in favor of new original characters will be hard to pay off. Could work.
Yeah, could.
I also don't know if Cherry is an original character. He wasn't in the show previously that I'm aware of.
I don't think he
was.
I
don't know if he's a fully brand new character. Kirsten McDuffie is not a brand new character. She's from the comics, and I think she was also in the show previously, right?
I think so at some point, yeah.
She was definitely in the comics, I know that.
Yeah, she definitely was there, and his girlfriend, new girlfriend lady, what's her name?
Is she somebody in the comics as well, or is she new?
Yeah, I think
she's new.
I think she's a weird, tragic, I think she gets fridged at some point in the comics or something like that. I forget her name even now, but...
Daredevil has a lot of lady friends.
Dude, he's, for a Catholic... He's a hound.
I love the way that they're playing with Matt's hearing in this a lot more. It seems like they're doing a lot more of that than they were in the original show. Like they use it a lot. Like they really lean on superpowers.
Yes,
a lot more in this than they do in the original show.
Dude, that little moment where there's like a lens flare that settles on Matt's ear as he's listening in to Foggy's phone call, and then the camera transitioned over to Foggy.
It was 3 different cameras. It wasn't even them like changing. If you pay attention, so I saw after the fact. When I was watching it, I was like, it doesn't look like they're just changing, like putting black bars or something. Like they were literally 3 different cameras that they were transitioning one to the next to the next. Here's a question for you. You seen Star Wars: The Clone Wars?
Yeah.
You remember how they did the last episodes?
Yeah.
So it was like, you're watching it, and then at a certain point, you're like, huh? Because you realize that it's taking place at the same time as Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Incredible moment.
Yep.
By the way, when Obi-Wan comes back and is like, the Chancellor has been captured, and you're like,
I remember seeing this in live action. Yeah.
I remember watching that like in the middle of the night with my old roommate, Ben Weber, and it was
shout out Ben.
We just looked at each other like, they're doing this. This is crazy.
And they did it so well.
They did it so well.
Yeah.
So here's what I almost thought was happening in this show.
I can't wait.
There was a point. And it makes no sense. But there was a point in, I think, the second episode when Tony Soprano Jr. is in the car with, who's great, by the way. I like him.
He does a really good job.
He's doing a really good job.
Did a great job as young Tony. Yeah.
Here's what I thought was happening. And I'm just going to say 3 words.
Yeah.
And you tell me if you know what I'm thinking. Spider-Man Bridge.
Spider-Man Bridge? Oh, are you talking about when they arrive at the big hole?
Yes.
Yeah.
Dude, when they got to the big hole on that bridge and they were like stopped there because there was an establishing shot that saw that bridge and I thought, looks like the bridge from No Way Home.
Yeah.
Then they were like stopped in traffic and I was like, whoa, that's weird. What are they waiting for, do you think?
You thought they were going to do the Spider-Man.
I was
going to be that scene.
I was like, is this happening at the same time as No Way Home? Is this that bridge? Is Doc Ock there right now?
Could have been that same
that
hole.
That would be crazy.
That'd be such a choice for sure.
Didn't happen. But I did write in my notes with a question mark, Spider-Man Bridge?
Yeah.
How did that hole, what is that? Maybe it is the same bridge.
Could
and
be.
They're just now getting around to maybe fixing a Dr. Octopus hole.
That's just where the Green Goblin showed up and sat down and his big old booty just made that big hole. Insert the Green Goblin with the big butt cheeks meme right here. Can't wait for you to do that.
What is up with that hole? I get what it does as a plot device, but like they're turning onto this intersection and it's just like a very small bridge.
Yeah.
It's not the same bridge. It's a very small bridge.
Yeah.
That they could probably just go around. But they're sitting here.
Yeah.
And they're like, what's happening out there, Tony Soprano? I don't know. There's you got a big hole out there. I don't know what's going on.
When I was a boy. I thought I was the hole in the street.
I was the hole in the street.
It turns out I am the construction man.
I am the construction.
Vanessa,
I will fill the hole.
Dude,
what?
Do you like his acting?
I think Vincent D'Onofrio was fantastic. He starts to feel a little goofy.
It's real goofy, and it's really like, it feels like overacting, but also kind of does. It's like on the brink of overacting.
If I didn't know what he sounded like in the way that he was in real life, I don't think I would think that much about it. But knowing that he sounds like a normal guy and he's a real sweetie in real life, it's very different.
I want him to play the Kingpin like he plays the dude in
Full Metal Jacket.
Close.
The Player.
Close. The Magnificent Seven.
Oh, yeah.
With
the one who has like furs and stuff, right?
And he's ready to kill people, but he's also got a high-pitched squeaky voice.
Does he have a squeaky voice in that movie?
Kinda, yeah.
It's been a long time since I watched that bad movie.
Dude, you didn't like it at all?
I like the original, and I like even more than the original, I like the Seven Samurai. So hard to get on board with Chris Pratt and his silly little knives or whatever. Is he the knife one? I don't know.
He's not the knife one.
He does card tricks.
Yeah.
This is card tricks.
That's card tricks?
Yeah, it's as close to card tricks as anybody playing a video game in a movie. So I'll take that.
Can I ask you to learn a card trick for our next episode of the back issues?
Not James.
but I would be really nice. It would be a nice personal favor to me if you learned a card trick for the next issue of the back issue or the next episode of the back issues.
You have to remind me.
Okay, I'll tell you. I'll tell you every day.
This is my final thoughts. I think that the comic books are really good. I think what I would like to see happen is don't make Muse just a guy.
Yep.
I want to see cool lawyer stuff in the vein of the comic book. I think cool Daredevil on trial things could be interesting, like they do in the comic book. I don't know that we can get into Zdarsky stuff in this season.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, you and I can. we can do that anytime we like.
What do you want to happen?
Dude, I was literally in my notes. It was a question for you. What will this show need to do successfully to live up to this old series? I'm right there with you. Excuse me.
I feel like right now, it's what I wrote here is Born Again, good, not great. It's not amazing yet. There's little shining moments of like, that felt good. That felt like the show. That felt like this is season 4. The fight scene at the end when like Daredevil, it is Daredevil. When the cops show up and he's telling that guy, you got to get out of here. Mm-hmm. And then he's just standing there like with some real weird vibes. Yeah. Giving off like Daredevil vibes of like, I'm a freaky guy. Yeah. And I'm blind. And you should be concerned about my state of being. Yeah. And then they're going to attack him. That fight scene is fantastic. It's very cool. I love a compound fracture in my Disney Plus television.
we love a broken arm inside of a shirt sleeve with blood coming out.
So good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think that they're really showing in these first 2 episodes that they are going to be violent.
Yeah.
And that it is going to be mature to the level of the old show.
Yeah.
I don't want that to be all it is. It can't be the thing that they did with whatever the last one was, that they were like just advertising it basically like crazy of like, it's rated mature.
Yeah.
You better watch out because this one's for grown-ups.
Yeah.
It's like, that's fine. Like, tell me that, whatever. But like, show me, is the show good? Well, do you have anything else important to say, Michael?
I have so many important things, but as far as Daredevil goes, I love it. I was telling Marshall, I think that the Daredevil is easily my favorite character to read comics on.
Oh wow.
And so that's why I really love that we got to start here. And I think it's going to be a great jumping off point to explore what we love about comic books and what makes them work so well.
Yeah. Sweet. Well, thanks for listening. I hope you like the show or watching or whatever. Check us out. Check us out on all the programs. If you're watching a little snippet of this on Cinema Lounge, then come back and figure it out over here on the other channel. I'm also doing other art stuff on this channel, like streaming and stuff on Fridays, but not tonight because I'm doing this right now and I don't want to stream after this. So thanks for listening to the show. If you like Daredevil comics, you should check out more Daredevil comics. There's not really an obvious if this, then that suggestion on this, because obviously right now, read the comics we're talking about, read other Daredevil comics. Bendis's run is really good.
Yeah.
If you want a more lighthearted run, if you really liked the way that Daredevil was in She-Hulk, then you can read Mark Waid and Chris Samney's Daredevil. That's the one that came just before Charles Soule, and it's really fun. The art's fantastic, and it's a much more lighthearted version of the character. Daredevil is one of those rare characters that really just hasn't had a bad run for decades.
Yeah.
So you can pretty much pick him up at any point, and it's going to be pretty good. I can't speak for what's going on right now. I have no idea where the comics are right now.
Yeah. It's going to be great, though.
Thanks, everyone, for checking out the back issues. Suggest it to a friend if you like it. And don't forget to always read a comic book.
Go to your local comic book store, read them, pick them up, go through the boxes. Oh, I like this one.
Back issues.
Back issues.
My back.
Oh, ow, my back.
That could be funny.
That's going to be, I hope you're playing the outro music right here.
My back.
And then, oh, my back.
I'm back. Oh my
leg.